Hello and welcome to the Carolina Panthers Football in My Mind podcast. I'm your host, Luke Farber, and what is in my mind today? Well, that loss last week to the Bears was embarrassing. I don't think there's any other way to put it. We got embarrassed by DJ Moore and Caleb Williams, two of the guys that we traded to the Bears to select Bryce Young. And obviously, Bryce Young is riding our bench right now. So it's early. Usually, scouts and NFL personnel take about 3 years to judge a draft class. But in the immediate now, we are definitely losing that trade. That's one of the things that made the loss that much more embarrassing and that much more frustrating and that much more angering, especially because we also watched around the league on Sunday. We watched CJ Stroud lead another comeback and beat a great team at home to take his team's record to 4-1. We watched Jaden Daniels blow away the competition again for the Commanders to go 4-1. Bo Nix won again. It Seeing all the other success of these young quarterbacks is a kick in the teeth to what we've seen from Bryce Young so far. Now, Bryce did get in the game late, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it was a tough one to stomach. Tough one to stomach. However, we can't dwell on it. We got to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and go back to work. That's all there is to do. The season's not over yet. We're not going to give up. That's not the type of franchise we are. It's not the type of team we are. We're going to keep pounding. We're going to get back to work, and we're going to figure it out. Moving on to the recap of the game. Let's start where we always do on offense with the offensive line. Well, we had a couple more injuries that we'll discuss later on, but the offensive line definitely had their worst game in pass protection. Gave up 4 sacks, and really they got after the offensive line all game long. You got to give the Bears defense a lot of credit. They were better than I anticipated. They were sticky coverage in the secondary, and like I said, their defensive line put it on us. And especially after some really good performances by the offensive line, even in pass protection, I was not expecting that. That's for sure. The running game still was great. Chuba had 97 yards on 7.5 a carry and a touchdown. The team had 19 carries for 120 yards at 6.3 a carry. Those are good numbers. The number that isn't good is the number of carries, because that tells you we're behind. That tells you we're trying to throw it too much. And we want to be able to control the clock. We want to be able to run the ball. Chuba has proven he can be a force in the NFL so far this year. Keep giving him the rock, man. Keep pounding the ball. Wide receivers were shut down pretty much for the most part. The Bears defense is legit again. We're still looking for somebody to step up in the absence of Adam Thielen. There were a couple things I noticed this last game, and kind of from watching Deontay Johnson throughout the first quarter of this season. He is so shifty, and he relies on that quickness and elusiveness so much to get open that he seems to really use that to shy away from contact. Now, I don't know. I've only watched some of him so far, but a lot of times he looks like he uses that shiftiness to avoid contact. And I mean, that's fine, but the question in my mind is he tough enough to be a true number one? Because if you're out there using your quickness and your athleticism to not get hit, as opposed to maybe breaking some tackles here and there, then, what is your ceiling exactly? it's probably not as high as somebody who is willing to put in that extra effort and strength to break tackles. Now, I'm not saying he can't or he won't, but I haven't seen a ton of it so far. So that is a curious thing in my mind, which also gets me to being not too surprised that the Steelers let him go, because that is definitely not the Steelers' MO. You can say whatever you want about George Pickens and his antics and whatnot, but he's out there playing hard, giving it his all. Anyway, not saying that Deontay isn't. I'm just curious about that kind of lack of taking on contact as an offensive skill player. And really, can he be that true number one if he's not tougher physically? I don't know. Also, the nice thing was that Jalen Coker got in the game and actually made some plays. Up from the practice squad, impressed in the preseason, 4 catches for 68 yards, top producing offensive receiving weapon this last week. So that was good to see. Is he going to be the next one to step up in Thielen's absence? Because we're still waiting on Mingo. Obviously, Get has made some plays, but he got hurt this last game and sat out most of the second half. Anyway, Coker made some plays. Honestly, he reminds me a bit of Puka Nacua. Physically, the way he moves, the type of receiver he is. Obviously, to get that kind of impact, I'm not expecting him to be Puka Nacua, but if he could be somewhat of a lesser version, but still a solid wide receiver, we need that. We need all the help that we can get. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the coming weeks. Our tight end room still mostly looks non-existent at this point. It's just not making many plays. And unfortunately, we lost Tommy to a concussion during the first half, of course, on which he lost a fumble. So that's tough to take, although Ian Thomas possibly is back this week, which could help. We'll see. What happened on defense? Well, our defense got beat up. We looked bad. Caleb Williams looked great, and he has not looked great so far this rookie year. And so that is a bit distressing that the defense couldn't make him look a little bit more like a rookie. Obviously, we start with the pass rush because it's still pretty non-existent. And we lost Clowney, our next best defensive lineman during this game. And without him out there, we're really, our guys get off the line. It looks like they have a decent push. It looks like here and there, and then they just get locked up and can't get away. It doesn't seem like anybody's got a secondary move that works particularly often. So more coaching needs to be done. Obviously, we hope to get some other guys back from injury soon, but it's not going to be this week. I definitely underestimated the loss of our leader, our captain, Shaq, right there in the middle. Also losing Josie Jewell. I mean, we lost our 2 starting inside linebackers the week before. And the thing that suffered really immensely this week, especially without those guys in there, was the communication. You could see a bunch of people were on different pages, and we gave up a bunch of big plays because of it. That communication has been up and down so far this year for the unit. It was looking better after the first couple of games, but without those guys in the middle, we took a major step back in that area last week. It was good to see the rookie Wallace get out there and make some plays. I mean, he had 15 tackles, which is great, but it's not the same. He doesn't have the same experience. He gets lost in the wash, over pursues, is not as good in coverage, and obviously is not as good of a communicator. So luckily he'll get that experience, but we're going to take our lumps in the meantime. There's no way around it. The run D was solid. We only gave up 3.3 yards a carry. However, we gave up 39 carries. Obviously, that's the kind of run total that we want as a team. That's not the type that we want to be giving up, because obviously that says we're probably behind. So even though they were only getting 3.3 yards a carry, it didn't really matter because they were up by 10, 20, 26 points by the end of the game. So obviously not that influential on the outcome of the game. We also didn't have any turnovers. We are going to need turnovers if we are going to win more games. And unfortunately, because of the injuries that I've talked about already, losing Derek Brown in the first game, our best defensive lineman, we've suffered a lot of key injuries, especially on defense, especially in the front seven, and it has taken its toll. I mean, the defense looked like the worst unit in the league this last week. And, without a pass rush and without our best players and leaders on the field, it's probably not going to change anytime soon. So we're going to have to figure something out. I know EJ is a great coach and the guys aren't going to give up, and we will improve, but it might take a little while. Anyway, to sum up the game came down to turnovers on offense. We gave up 3 of them. Dalton's one interception, it was one of those where you could tell this game that Dalton looked a little bit more like an aging backup than he had before, especially the interception to Mingo that he threw was on a deep ball. And he was under pressure, but he basically threw the ball vertically up the field when Mingo was breaking away more horizontally. And really throwing the ball over the top is what allowed the defender to have leverage and an angle on the ball. If he had thrown the ball more towards the sideline across the field, then Mingo would have had the inside track to the ball and probably a big play. But obviously that didn't happen. And there are 2 fumbles. There's nothing we could do about that. Tommy got hit in the head, got concussed immediately, and just dropped the ball. That happens. There's nothing you can do about it. And then what is ridiculous to me is the fumble on Chuba's reception in the second half. Give me a break. I've seen this too many times this year, including in the Chargers game on the first drive of the game when Hayden Hurst caught the ball, fumbled, and we recovered. They changed the play on the field after review to an incomplete pass. Well, if that was an incomplete pass, this sure as heck was an incomplete pass. I mean, he didn't get to take a step and the ball's knocked out of his hands. It's not a catch. Just like, it's really hard for me sometimes with these reviews, especially the one we saw last night in Seattle and San Francisco, when the ball bounces up on a muff punt and obviously touches the returner's hand and then is obviously recovered by the other team, yet it is not overturned. And then to get some explanation 10 minutes later from the league about how the review office in New York didn't have the right angle, didn't have the angle, or didn't have the enhanced view that they had in the booth. Give me a break. Are you kidding? I don't believe that for a second. And if I did believe it, you're telling me the NFL can't get its technology right, that it hasn't gotten it right over the last 10 to 15 years that review has been in place, and that they can't look at it on the field and tell blatantly? Like, it's sometimes with these reviews, especially when you're a small market team that has not had a lot of success in recent years, it's funny how the calls don't tend to go your way. And they tend to go in Chicago's way and in San Francisco's way and in Dallas's way. Just saying. Anyway, we turned the ball over 3 times on offense. We didn't get any turnovers on defense, and we allowed too many big plays to their offense. 36-10, done. Anyway, can we move on? Can we move on now? Thank God we can. On to Atlanta. So we have Atlanta this week. We're back at home, which is good, against a division rival, which, you know, Atlanta scored a bunch of points last week. Kirk Cousins threw for over 500 yards. It's ridiculous. Obviously, our defense has been injury plagued and mistake prone, and that doesn't look like a good recipe for us. However, we are playing a division rival. They had a big overtime win against a division rival last week. Maybe they overlook us, especially because we were so bad on defense last week. And maybe the team responds. Maybe it is able to shut down at least for a period of time or emphasize on what is happening. So, anyway, I'm very interested in how our team responds. It'll be very interesting, especially because we're dealing with so many injuries. So our injury report doesn't look good this week. We lost our center, Austin Corbett, last week for the entire season. We lost our starting right tackle, Taylor Moton. He's out this week. Our backup center is still out with a concussion. Our starting tight end is now out with a concussion. Luckily, we're possibly getting Ian Thomas back in the tight end room, which will help offset that. But the strength of our offense so far has been our offensive line and our running game. And we're missing 2 starters, including our center, which is a huge thing. So seeing how those new guys come together and seeing how they play, and if we can run the ball at the very least, is going to determine what kind of potential we have for success in this game. Also, Josie Jewell's still out, linebacker, and Clowney is doubtful. So we're going to be dealing with about the same issues that we had last week. Can this depleted defensive line get any sort of pass rush? Can the young linebackers make plays and communicate clearly, whether it be in the running game or the passing game? And can the secondary get on the same page? It's that communication throughout the defense is going to be something to watch, not only this week, but as the weeks go along. So anyway, our key to success always is that offensive line and feeding chuba. And hopefully getting that play action game off. We need those wide receivers to step up. Who is going to? Is Jalen Coker going to come out and have another good game? Leggett will be back in the lineup. Luckily, that injury only kept him out the second half last week. So, other than Adam Thielen, we will have our full complement of wide receivers. So we'll see how that goes. The nice thing is that we're going up against an Atlanta defense that is not good. In fact, they have a worse pass rush than we do, which is shocking to me that anybody does. And especially Atlanta, when they traded for Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons and signed Justin Simmons in the preseason, I thought that would take care of their pass rush woes and take care of their secondary woes. And it really hasn't, which is a little surprising to me. Hopefully they don't just find themselves this week against us. But we may have a better chance to have more time and more comfort for Dalton to throw back there, definitely than against the Bears, because, yeah, the Bears got after us. Anyway, on to the defense. Can we find a pass rush? How will the communication improve? Atlanta has a lot of offensive skill talent. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Mooney has made a bunch of plays that, their walk-off touchdown in overtime last week was by a bottom of the roster kind of guy. So, and we're going to have our problems on defense. I don't expect it to get fixed this week, which means we're going to have to outscore them. In fact, moving forward, we're probably going to have to outscore people to win games this year. And unfortunately, like, we've got some weapons. We've got more weapons than last year. We've got a better offensive line. We've got a better running game. But we still don't have weapons like the teams with all top of the league type firepower. So us being able to outscore our opponents isn't going to be easy. I feel like we're going to have to put up 30 a game to win at this point. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully the defense can figure it out. But it's really going to be on the offense to carry us, which is why I hope that they really lean into the running game and shorten the game, hold the football, keep our defense on the sideline and out of harm's way, hopefully, and then be able to hit those big plays over the top. Having Dalton lead the guy in the right direction, having the receivers step up and make contested catches. Our offense is going to have to lead the way, especially because when we took those defensive attributes that we had and we put them over onto the offensive side, as in trading away Brian Burns and letting Frankie Louvu walk and letting Hassan Reddick walk several years ago. I'll still not get over that one. Anyway, our offense has got to carry it, and I'm just not sure if that's something they're quite ready to do, especially against a team with as much offensive talent as Atlanta. Unfortunately, I think we stay in the loss column this week. 34-20 Atlanta victory, but we're going to show some more signs of improvement on offense, a little bit better than last week, and just more competitive, because we don't want to endure a season of us just getting our asses pounded up and down the field. We don't. The guys in the locker room don't either. I know it. But this is going to be a tough one for us to win. The defense of injuries being depleted, the offensive line injuries, and Thielen being out, I just don't think we're going to be able to outscore Atlanta. Anyway, I hope y'all are having a good week and have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. Keep pounding. Go Panthers.